Welcome to the Mum CEO podcast. I'm your host, Esther Roach. Join me as we explore the dynamic intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. From the challenges to the triumphs, we're here to unravel it all. Get ready for insightful conversations, practical wisdom, and a whole lot of inspiration. Let's embark on this empowering journey together. Hello and welcome to the Mum CEO podcast. I'm the host, Esther Roach, and today I'm joined by Andrea. Hello, Andrea, and welcome to the show.
Hello, Esther. I'm very excited to be here.
Now, it's a pleasure having you today. So for the benefit of the audience, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do.
See, I'm a really passionate new startup garden designer. But first of all, I'm a mom of a 12-year-old wonderful little boy trying to navigate business and whole home life, basically.
Tell us a little bit about your journey because, I know we met in person and we had quite a good chat, a bit emotional chat. But if you just explain your experience with motherhood, how has that been? How has that time kind of been for you since you had your son? Because I know, you say that you felt mentally and physically crushed out, obviously in the early stages. What did that look like for you?
It was a really difficult journey because I became a mom quite late in life. So I guess, that raises your anxiety in itself. But the real challenge for me was to have our child, in an environment away from home, let's put it that way, having no support network whatsoever,
Mhm.
and basically trying to navigate the whole motherhood, the new motherhood, together with the physical and mental challenges in a world which is completely filled with advice from all over the place if you open social media, if you open the web, anything. So I think, I just basically got lost amongst all this for a good couple of years. So it was really challenging for me those couple of years, and I think that's how the whole journey began.
Wow. And it's interesting you pick up on the social media because I think sometimes people look at it and they see the Instagram stories like the pretty things, which are not really the realistic thing that is going on the ground
Mm.
because not everybody is, open enough to post, this is the house. It's a mess today because the kids are doing whatever, or even a kid if you just have one. And it kind of gives like the wrong perception almost. And if you're not doing that, you feel like you're not capable and you're not able. And you probably felt quite down seeing other people look successful, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, because you're surrounded by perfect motherhood, if you will. So you see a lot of people with happy pictures, with happiness. I'm breastfeeding, I'm the super mom, I'm the wonderful mom. And then you're there all by yourself in your little bubble, being the complete opposite of it. So I guess it puts a pressure on everyone, and it's not just moms, it's anyone basically nowadays trying to navigate this virtual world that we live in, or these technical advances that surround us. So that didn't help. That definitely didn't help. But I guess that's what my whole journey is about, and that's what I really wanted to talk to you about today, is that how do you get out of there really? How to realize that you're actually in that position, and how to basically find yourself again.
Yeah, and if you can share that little journey basically from,
Mm.
that moment that you had a light bulb or a realization that something was wrong and that you needed to do something about it.
I knew something was wrong straight from the start. I had a very difficult birth. So physically, I was absolutely shattered. But obviously, with postnatal depression, also sorts of things that started to spiral down based on what we just spoke about a couple of minutes ago. I knew something was wrong. Everybody knew something was wrong. But I think what the real challenge for anyone, and moms in particular, is that there is no one who can really help unless we try to understand that there is something that we can do about it. And we need to understand that we do have the strength, however low we are. We do have the strength to find something positive and to find something to worth living for, apart from our children, obviously. And for me, the real turning point was when I got an allotment. I think it was about a year or two after I became a mum, and I had an allotment, and it was just a weedy, empty plot of land that I had no idea what I'm going to do with. But I went there with my son, who was tiny at the time, and we just started digging. We started pulling weeds out, and gradually, when you when you are in contact with soil, I could talk about the science behind it, but I think maybe that's another podcast. But when you are in contact with the soil, we do react to it. So there are physical reactions in our body, that there is serotonin that starts to release in our body, and you start to feel happier, and there is a natural antidepressant in the soil, which is amazing, and lots of people don't know about it. So I guess, it started to build joy, and I think through gardening and through working with soil and through starting to grow things, I rediscovered joy, basically. And the more I knew, the more I wanted to know. And that's where the whole learning journey began. So I originally I was trained as an interior designer, and I do love art and I do love design and I do draw with hand. I love painting, etc. But for a very, very long time, I moved away from that because I worked in a multinational company. I worked in process improvement. I worked in process governance, project management, you name these fancy things. And, a lot of traveling and everything. But then at that very point on that allotment, I felt that I need to go back to my roots. And that was the point. And I think that's the bottom line that sort of defined my journey ever since, is how you find yourself. And I found myself there.
Wow. It is really incredible to sort of think, how you can just connect, to obviously the allotment. I have an allotment as well. And I get what you mean about it, because that's the place, it's probably the one place I can completely switch off. I can leave my
You
phone.
can.
I don't have to think about anything. All I'm concerned about is the plants. Have I watered enough? It's almost like nurturing. You've got this protective nature that just develops, I think, if you have a passion for what you're doing and enjoy what you're doing. But it's very underestimated, the power of connecting with nature. What sort of things can people do to, even if they don't have an allotment, what can they do to implement little things just to be out in the nature?
I truly believe, I think that's the biggest passion I have, that we're all connected to nature. And I think nowadays people do forget that. So I try to advocate for people to grow food, any kind of food. And you can just have a pot of herb in your windowsill. You don't necessarily have to have green fingers, or you can have a container on your patio and you just put, I don't know, a tomato that you buy in a garden center in it. And then, when you get that first bite of something that you grew, I think that's when you understand that pure joy that nothing else can provide than nature to us and growing our own things for us. So not only in my work, but in my private life as well. That's the thing that I'm most passionate about, how to try to reconnect people with nature. And obviously, choosing the profession that I have, I think that's just the perfect thing to actually do, to make sure that I try to educate and I try to help clients, and I can try to help people, to reconnect with nature.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, did you have any experience previously, or you just started with no previous, like, have you grown things when you were younger?
Hmm. My favorite and happiest childhood memories is when I was very little, and one of my grandmas lived in the countryside. And I remember she allocated a tiny little plot for me, and I could do whatever I wanted there. So she just gave me seed, or, I could dig whatever I wanted. And somehow, again, going back to that allotment light bulb moment, this is what came back to me, that sort of happy feeling. And that just grew ever since. So it never stopped growing ever since. But I think that's what it is. I never really grew anything before, but the more you learn, the more you want to learn. And as I said, once you have that first bite, you want to do more, in my experience at least.
No, but
You
the thing
want to
is,
do
you
more.
do, yeah, you do tell, you can tell the difference when you have homegrown stuff to, some of the stuff you buy, well, a lot of the stuff you buy from the shops, and it's very, very different. And I've got that experience because I love growing different things, like I said. But how did you come from just enjoying it and sort of rebuilding that love and finding yourself to then, fully following through? Did you have to restudy? What did you have to do?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So I first started, I just wanted to know a little bit more about vegetables to begin with. So I started my Royal Horticultural Society courses, the RHS courses, which purely focuses on horticulture to begin with. So I wanted to know more how to do it better, how to do it more consciously, not just playing around, and half of my plants died, etc. So I wanted to know more, but then you are bitten by the bug. And the passion just grew, and from that point, people who know me closer and who know me better, they know that I've been studying for the past 6 years, I think, non-stop, and I will never ever stop, because there is always something, you can learn, and you can develop, and you can just be more passionate about. And so I started to do more and more coursework. I started to work on garden design in particular. So I enrolled with the KLC, which is a design school in London. I also studied at Capel Manor, which is again a quite famous garden design education that you can have in this profession. So, and now at the very moment, I'm learning Vectorworks, just sort of improving the work that I do and never stop developing and learning. So yes, you do have to learn, you do have to redefine your whole career basically, and if you want to be good at what you do, then I strongly believe that you never stop learning, really.
And that's true. That's really good advice as well to anybody who's listening, because it's one of those
Mhm.
things that you think, once I learn this, that's the end of it. I don't have to learn again. But it's almost like it's continuing the development, isn't it? A bit of like CPD, if you like. You're learning
It
the new
is.
things. There's innovation. There's different products coming to market. There's different ways of even growing things that are coming around, which were not used so many years ago, and that sort of stuff. So that's really brilliant for anybody. It applies to any industry or any field. But when you started and decided, okay, I'm going to do it as a business, did
Mhm.
you have any fear, or did you just go for it?
Oh, no, no, no. I'm not the go for it type. No. So as I said, I worked in quite serious roles before in multinational companies, one of which was risk management. And again, being you know, now I'm in my 50s, but at the time, being in my late 40s, you sort of past that stage of your life when you're absolutely risk free and etc. I say no, I'm quite risk averse from that perspective, and I always wanted to make sure that I lay down those foundations properly before I start to build my little business house on it. So for me, it was extremely important to understand how business works. So I spent my last year, since I incorporated my new company, I spent last year learning how to run a business, networking, making sure that those foundations are really, really strong. And the moment, everything will take off, then I can focus on the design, the creative side of it, rather than worry about how to run a business.
Mm. And that's very sensible as well, because I think sometimes, what I like is that you didn't hold back and think I've got to learn about how to run a business first before incorporating, did you? You did look at the risks, but you still gave it a go. So I would say you are a goer, even though you don't think that. But you didn't wait and procrastinate and think about when I'm ready and when I can run a business, then I will start.
No.
That's right, isn't
No, the
it?
business has started. The business has started. It's
Yeah.
just people will have to know about it a little bit more, I guess. Yes, so there is a lot of work in the background, and you know it very well. You know it
Yeah.
firsthand that 80% of running a business is literally running a business, and 20% is what you love to do. So, what I'm trying to say is, that there is no running away from the nitty-gritty of this life,
Yeah.
but I do enjoy it very much. I do. So I think it's a fantastic learning curve. And regardless of if you are someone who just likes to jump in and do it and try, or you're like me, who's a little bit risk averse and maybe taking steps slower, just do it. Simple as that, because nobody else will.
No, absolutely. And that's true because I think it's more, a lot of people find it quite frightening. I was at a conference last week and one of the keynote speakers was talking about what would you do if you had no fear? What would your life look like? What sort of things would you do? And it's really kind of stuck with me now because I'm thinking most people would hold back completely because there's a fear of I don't know how to run a business or fear of what if it fails. But all those things are learning curves, and it's what do we learn from everything that we experience? And what if you start and it's fine? So it's really quite a big question about not having the fear around things. And for you, obviously, getting into your passion, you started off, obviously, you did the interior design back whenever you did it, but now your passion is more homeowners. So you're not talking like, um, big places, but it's more like homes and really supporting people to make their space more meaningful and useful. What got you into that? Why particularly homeowners?
Mhm. Um, when was it? It's a little bit over a decade ago. We bought a new build house. We bought it off plan and we ended up with an empty garden, a lot of rubble under the turf,
Right.
not knowing what to do. That's where this whole spark started in my head, how to make a change. So I'm someone who is passionate about making a change. Even if a little one, even if it's only in our own environment, but let's all of us try to make a change
Yeah.
somehow. And ever since I started the garden design journey, I see literally thousands of houses popping up in my neighborhood in a very close vicinity. And all these houses are empty. So, if you think about, a lot of these developments being built on green belts, we are losing a lot of nature nature, etc. And for me, just seeing those little empty patches
Mm.
just sort of struck a chord where I thought, goodness, there is a huge opportunity here because there are a lot of people who are like me when I moved into mine over a decade ago, who think, oh my God, what to do with this, how to improve this. Oh my God, I'm overlooked from 10 houses, but I would like some privacy. Or let's say I left my beautiful home behind with a wonderful garden that I worked on for decades, but now I downsized. And I would love to have
Mm.
some of that back, but I don't know how to do it.
Mm.
So there are a lot of lives that I can think of which could be improved significantly by just simply bringing nature to their doorsteps. So I set myself on a mission basically. So I'm exclusively focusing on new build homes,
Okay.
and I would love to work with people who would like to change their environment. And I'm very happy to be able to help with this transition because, in my opinion, what we're talking about is not just the cosmetic change, but
Yeah.
it is a life transition. You have a new home, and then you're just transitioning into something new that can grow with you.
Wow. And that is beautiful because I think a lot of the times, like you said, you can get really overwhelmed, especially if you don't understand the garden or think everything has to be horrendous. And, going back to what you said earlier about even if you're just growing a tomato or some kind of herb on your windowsill, I think you get to appreciate and start seeing how that nature can sort of help you. And the taste is different as well, which might encourage you to do a bit more, but you can only do what you can with the space that you have. But it's amazing that you're helping and supporting, especially the new builds. And a lot of them, the gardens are quite small as well. So it's, how you maximize that and make it a pleasant space that works, for if whether you're on your own or whether you have a family as well. So that's really good. And how can people work with you? Where can they find you, or how do you work with them?
My new website is live now, so all my availabilities are there. So I'm more than happy to welcome any calls and emails and conversations from now on. And basically, I think we just have to start a conversation. And I would like people to understand that they are investing in their future, investing in their home's value, future value. So I'm open to any conversations.
Oh, fantastic. And just in terms of, your own journey, because it has been a fair bit of transition, if you like, for yourself. How has that in, impacted your son? What does he think of mummy and what she's doing?
I think he's very proud. He's really proud because he saw me at my weakest. And now he sees me starting to flourish again. And I think our children, more than anyone, do feel that transition because we are very much linked with them. And I think it gave him a very good example as well to see that yes, you can learn no matter how later you are in life. You can always learn. You can always stand up. You can always work for whatever you dream about. And I think, I'd like to feel that I set a really good example for him. And I do know that he's my biggest supporter, So that makes me very, very happy, obviously, knowing how proud he is.
Now that's a fantastic answer, really. But like you said, because you started the journey when he was a lot younger, and hopefully he will take the same as you to have the happy memories with your granny and, being allowed that freedom, because I think sometimes we forget to have that bit of freedom. And even with these gardens, I'm just thinking about it now that you're talking about your own experience that you had a little patch when a garden is done and everything is so perfect, sometimes the kids are not even allowed to have a play. It's always like, no, leave that alone because you're going to mess it up. And it's kind of like important, I think, to give them that little bit, that little patch, so that they connect with it and understand and know where their food comes from. If you like, even if you're not growing, you don't have to be growing a year's worth of food, but it's just important that they understand, because there is also a lot that don't even know where the food comes from. It's, oh yeah, it comes from the supermarket. And they have no idea that you can grow these, a lot of these things. So, well done to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I just do my very best. So again, as parents, I think we have the responsibility to try to teach these values to children and to our children. So as you said, they understand where the food is coming from, and it's not necessarily the beautiful, perfect thing that you buy in a supermarket. So I sometimes feel it a little bit challenging with the peer pressure going on. And obviously, we have less and less of those early gardening experiences together as he ages. But I do think that the seed has been planted, and that is going to flourish maybe later in his life. But I do know he understands what I'm about. He understands the connection with nature, and in his own way, he's still connected, just a little bit less, in the early teens now.
No, that's amazing. And have you got any tips you'd like to leave the audience with at all?
I think there is one. Um, as I said, for me, the most challenging time was to just basically losing myself, without having that support network, etc. And I think what I'd like to say to any mom struggling out there is that listen to your gut, listen to your own feelings rather than the words and noise around you, because I believe that we instinctively know what's the best for us or what's the best for our children. And I think that if we just stop and listen to that voice, then maybe we can turn things around quicker or easier.
Well, that's a brilliant tip. And everything you've shared is really about kind of finding yourself again, because it can be tough and it can be challenging, especially when you become a mum, whether it's the first time or you're repeating it again. It's been an absolute pleasure having you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure talking to you.